boys and girls. I am teacher Melinda Hughes, and today I am delighted to do Grade 5 Social Studies with you. We will examine the topic weather and climate, but specifically we will focus on terms that are associated with weather. Terms that are associated with weather. Previously, we would have examined certain aspects of weather and climate. So we would have defined weather, we would have defined climate, we looked at the difference between weather and climate, we would have also studied patterns that are associated with weather. We also identified instruments that a meteorologist uses in order to predict the weather. So today, we will focus specifically on terms that are associated with weather, and as we do, we will recap the definition for weather and climate. Let's get going. What is weather? So we will recap. Weather is the daily condition in the atmosphere at a particular place at a given time. So for example, for a day or a week or a month. Let's review patterns that are associated with weather. And so there is a chart there that gives us a guide to patterns that are associated with weather. Boys and girls, we would have examined this in our previous lesson that is based on weather and climate. So let's recap patterns that are associated with weather. So we have partly cloudy, cloudy, sunny, windy, rainy, stormy, or snowy for other parts of the world. So boys and girls, for us to examine the terms that are associated with weather, we must look at the elements of weather. So let's begin. On the screen, we have a diagram that shows us elements of weather, and I will go in random order. I will also ask you to repeat the elements as I call them. So I will give you an opportunity to repeat the elements of weather as I call them. Let's go, boys and girls. Elements of weather. Cloud cover. Cloud cover. Another element of weather is temperature. Temperature. Next we have sunshine. Sunshine. Boys and girls, let's continue. The next element of weather is rainfall. Rainfall. Next we have humidity. Humidity. So you say that word quite nicely. Humidity. Next element of weather is atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure. Another element is wind direction. Wind direction. And finally, yes, you may have said it before I did, wind speed. Wind speed. And so there we have it, the elements of weather. In describing the weather of a place, one must make specific reference to the elements of weather. Yes, boys and girls, the elements of weather are very important if we are to describe weather in a particular place. These elements that make up the weather are, and those were displayed just now on the diagram. So now I will examine with you what each element simply means. Temperature is how hot or cold a substance is. This is measured in degrees Celsius and can be converted to Fahrenheit. Atmospheric pressure. This is the weight of air pressing down on the Earth's surface. So atmospheric pressure is another element of weather, and it simply means the weight of the air that is pressing down on the Earth's surface. Humidity refers to the water content that is found in the atmosphere. Next, we will look at rainfall. Rainfall. When water from the Earth's surface evaporates, it forms clouds. Condensation then takes place. When the water condenses, the clouds are formed. When the clouds become heavy, they burst, and that is referred to precipitation. However, rainfall is when those tiny droplets or large droplets fall from the clouds. In addition to rainfall, there is also hail, snow, and sleet. These are all forms of precipitation. However, in order to describe the weather, keen attention is paid to rainfall. Sunshine. The sun's rays reaching the Earth's surface is known as sunshine. The next element of weather that we will discuss is cloud cover. Cloud cover. The amount of sky covered with clouds is known as cloud cover. The next element of weather is wind speed. The rate at which the air is traveling in a particular area is referred to as wind speed. And finally, let's look at wind direction. And this is very simple. It simply means the direction in which the wind originates. So, boys and girls, these are the elements of weather: temperature, atmospheric pressure, humidity, rainfall, sunshine, cloud cover, wind speed, and wind direction. So, boys and girls, let's examine the terms that are associated with weather. Of course, there are several of them. We will only examine a few, and so as I call them, you are free to repeat it. So let's begin. Climate. Climate. That's one of the terms that is associated with weather. Next, climate change. Climate change. Drought. Drought. Another term that is associated with weather is global warming. Global warming. I am sure, boys and girls, you may have heard these terms before. The next term is El Niño. El Niño. And finally, we will look at La Niña. La Niña. So, boys and girls, those are some of the terms that are associated with weather that we will examine. But before we do, let us recap what is climate, since these terms are associated with weather and climate, but more specifically weather. What is climate? Climate is the average weather condition in an area over a long period of time. For example, 30 or 40 years. In Guyana, the climate is wet and dry. So the pictures that are shown, one shows us the climate when it is wet, and what makes it wet? When it rains. The other picture, where there is a combine in a rice field, depicts that it is dry. So in Guyana, the climate or the weather condition that we experience over a long period of time can either be wet or dry. Our next term that we will examine or discuss is climate change. Climate change. And boys and girls, I am sure you would have heard this term before. So let's get going. What is climate change? Climate change is the change of the normal weather patterns around the world over an extended period of time. So yes, boys and girls, climate change does not only refer to climatic conditions that we experience in Guyana, but all over the world. This simply means that there is a change. Please notice, climate change is the change in the normal weather patterns around the world. And yes, weather patterns refer to the patterns of weather, which simply mean it can be rainy or windy or sunny or partly cloudy, etc. So climate change can affect the season. So we can have a prolonged dry season, or we can have excessive rainfall. When there is prolonged dry season, the surface of the earth or soil cracks. Excessive rain simply means that there will be floods. Next, we will examine drought. Drought is another term that is associated with weather. What is drought? I am certain some of you are shouting or you are repeating. Drought refers to a prolonged period of abnormally low rainfall, or drought simply means no rain at all for a long period of time. Yes, boys and girls, I am sure you are aware of the meaning of the word drought. Drought, this results in the land becoming parched, as you can observe in the picture there. Drought affects all living things, which simply means plants and animals, even human beings, are affected when there is drought. Our next term that is associated with weather is global warming. What is global warming? Simply, global warming is the steady rise in the Earth's temperature due to increase of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Yes, boys and girls, global warming is the steady rise in the Earth's temperature due to the increase of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. In the picture there, you would notice it represents an area where it is icy. That's the Arctic Circle or the Antarctic. So ice melts. Why is that so? Because there is a rise in the Earth's temperature due to increase of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And this simply means global warming. So boys and girls, the next term we will look at is El Niño. El Niño. And so El Niño refers to the warming of the ocean surface in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean. Yes, boys and girls, El Niño occurs in the tropical Pacific Ocean region. The warm winds from the Pacific Ocean blow east across the coast of South America, which usually disrupt weather patterns and produce 1. Droughts, 2. Forest fires. So El Niño simply means that the surface of the ocean, specifically the Pacific, becomes warm. Our next term that we will examine is La Niña. La Niña is the opposite of El Niño. El Niño produces warmer ocean surface. So La Niña will produce cooler ocean surface. So La Niña is the weather condition that exists when the oceanic and atmospheric conditions are cooler than normal in the eastern Pacific Ocean. Yes, boys and girls, El Niño and La Niña are associated with the Pacific Ocean. What happens when La Niña surfaces? This results in 1. Heavy rains, which lead to floods. There is an increase in Atlantic hurricanes and more snow in the temperate zones. So La Niña results in heavy rains which lead to floods. There is an increase in Atlantic hurricanes and there is more snow in the temperate zones. So now we will examine a map of the world that shows us exactly how El Niño and La Niña travels, the path of El Niño and La Niña. On the map, you will notice that there are 2 arrows. Those arrows indicate the direction in which the wind travels. So the winds travel in an easterly direction from Pacific Ocean over to North America and certain parts of South America. What happens when the cooler wind travel across the oceans? We have an increase in Atlantic hurricanes. There is also heavy rainfalls which result in flood. As a matter of fact, more snow is formed in the temperate zones. When the wind is warm or warmer air travels across the ocean, leaving the Pacific over to North and South America, we have an increase in dry weather. There is an increase in prolonged dry seasons, which refer to El Nino. And so we have drought, which affects plants and animal life. So that map that you would have just looked at shows us exactly the direction from where the winds originate, whether cool or warm, from the Pacific Ocean and travels east towards North and South America, where the climate is affected either by El Nino or La Nina. So, boys and girls, let us recap. What are some of the terms that are associated with weather? Climate, climate change, drought, global warming, El Nino, and La Nina. So, boys and girls, this has brought us to the end of our lesson on terms that are associated with weather. And I am sure that you have learned something. Yes, the terms that we discussed: climate, climate change, drought, global warming, El Nino, and La Nina. Have fun, boys and girls, and I'll see you next time around.